Hi, welcome to our conversation, I guess I should say. I'm here talking to someone tonight who is, I guess, kind of threw Jennifer Aniston for a loop at the Golden Globes this year when he won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy. He's nominated for Best Actor in a Comedy for the Emmys and also for the show's nominees. Well, and more importantly, he's a man who apparently has cited Gerard Carmichael once or twice, the star and creator of the Emmy-nominated show, Ramy Youssef. Yeah, Ramy, so good to talk to you, man.
Oh, hey, what's up? So good to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. And first thing I have to say to you is, in performance terms, tell me how you got to playing Robbie the way he does, because I've seen you as a stand-up, and you have a really appraising stare, which you're using on me right now. Whereas the character Rami is eyes wide open, almost never blinks. And I just wonder where that characterization came from. It's really interesting as somebody who's kind of taking the world but not quite seeing things at the same time.
Mm, it's a really good question. I think on a performance level, something that I was really looking for when we were crafting the character is kind of stripping him back from real me. I didn't want to really create this character who's just like charming baristas at coffee shops and stuff and like just being like a, affable kind of person. I think that the way that I feel like I can be in real life, or even the way that I feel like I can be in comedy, is kind of like I think of seeing the way things affect me, and then I kind of make a choice as to how I want to interpret them and how I want to present to the world. And I think in kind of making this character, I wanted to kind of strip back that presentation a little bit and kind of have him a little bit more stuck, a little bit more lost, a little bit more in his feelings, which kind of gets the performance that really started to feel like the pocket of differentiating real me and screen Rami.
I have to say, for me, that really hit in the end of the first season when you're in Egypt. And it's even though he's been there before, it's like a new world to him. And he's constantly doing almost comic double take reactions to things with his eyes wide open. That really felt to me at the moment where, in a lot of ways, physically you understood him too, because he's kind of lost in his own body as a grown up.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely like fish out of water no matter where he goes in a way. And I think a lot of it is like again rooted in this. I think when you strip back all of us, we're scared, and you're mostly meeting people at their defense mechanism, at their way of coping, at their idea of who they are, and I think so much of what was exciting to me about the core of making this show was this character. It was kind of presenting, okay, there's who you think you are or who you want to be, and then who you actually are, and you're watching someone kind of fill that gap, and it does become something that manifests physically. It becomes something that definitely, yeah, when he goes to Egypt, he's so rocked because he really kind of had these preconceived notions as to what it was going to give him. It was almost like a little colonial of him to to walk into his country and be like, come on, you're supposed to give me what I'm looking for.
I guess I wonder if you create the character like that too, because you want him to be a little bit of an audience surrogate. Because for a lot of us, we're really learning about these areas that exist in the world of Islam. And for that character to be somebody who's questioning himself becomes a really cool way to bring the audience in slowly while over explaining things to them, I think.
I think that's a really good way to put it. And I don't know if we were kind of actually intentional about Rami being an audience surrogate, but he really is, and he really kind of is this character who is asking, I think, the same questions that a lot of people are asking. But yeah, we're definitely living in shorthand, and we're definitely living in not spelling things out too much. And by virtue of that, he is he's just trying to figure out what that means for him. And so that becomes a really exciting way for us to also let our other characters shine, and that's something that's been so fun for me with the show is getting to put my stand up and getting to put different things that I think into not just the Rami character, but kind of everyone around him in a way that is really exciting.
Well, I guess as you're talking about this, one of the things I love about the show too is that it's full of great actors. And whenever I see Lath, as soon as he turns up, he always gets too close to people. I mean, it's it's such a great performance thing, and you can almost see your character blinking whenever he starts to talk because he's immediately way too close, both figuratively and literally. Talk about casting the show in that way.
Yeah, it's such a love letter to people like Lath. I mean, I've known Lath since I was 18, and kind of watching him, you know, typecast for things and no one really using him in the way that I knew he could perform. And so that's someone who we're in the writer's room and we're crafting this uncle character, and I'm like, oh man, I know the guy. Like I know who could do this. And then it's also looking at like who really affects this character, this Ramy character, um, and kind of vice versa. And so when I look at the people who, we have Hyama Best playing my mom, who is such a gift in terms of casting. I searched the entire earth trying to find someone to play my mom because she was on Succession. We're making this show and we're in the pilot and we're like, oh, Hyama Best would be great, but she's a series regular on Succession. You can't be a series regular on two shows. And we were really lucky because I went to Egypt to audition people to play the mom. And
Wow.
and then I came back and I was like, okay, what if we just shoot the pilot with Hyam, and then if we can get it picked up, then we'll find some. We were just trying to buy time, and Hyam was like, cool, we'll do it. And then HBO's super gracious towards us and lets us have her for the show, which was really really cool. And then going to Egypt to try and find people to play my parents ends up being really kind of paramount to us going to shoot in Egypt because we're like, whoa, we already know we have a great cast over there. We met them when I went over. And so a lot went into the supporting cast. And in many ways, this is an ensemble show for me. I mean, we're obviously tracking the through line of the Ramy character, but I just have too much fun writing and directing for the other characters where I'm like, man, they make me really excited.
That's a good point to bring up because the character almost exists when he's around other people. When he's by himself, I mean, the only time we really see him actually sort of thinking about things is that last scene of the last episode with the dog in the car. But he's so defined by his relationship to other people. Was that something that you were working towards in the writing of the show too?
Yeah, he is very much. I think it's this thing that can happen when you're trying to figure out how to be. You gravitate towards people who have strong points of view and who kind of have a code. And he's looking to create his own code. There's obviously the faith, and there's obviously this religion that means a lot to him, and this culture that means a lot to him. But he's also really looking like, well, where am I at? Because basically in his eyes, everyone around him has kind of decided how they want to be and how they want to be about. But so much of that is basically kind of like how anyone feels when they're going through life. They often feel like everyone around them kind of is more figured out than they are. And we get to mess with that too when we go into perspective of different characters, right? Because then we're with someone else and suddenly, oh wow, his sister is a fish out of water too. Oh wow, his mom is in her own way and his father, etc. So we're kind of really getting to play with perspective. And I think when it pertains to the Ramy character, he is probably at this point the spongiest. And so like we kind of get to see him really like any good sponge just get wringed out and fill up and get wringed out and just really go through it.
I have to ask you too, because especially seeing your stand-up, where you, in one way or another, talking about being tested and testing yourself. A lot of these situations in the show, Ramy ends up being a test for the other characters. They end up questioning themselves. They think they know who they are until they come into contact with him, which I think is a really interesting idea in a show that's about faith, to make people who think that, like you're saying, have a sense of assurance about themselves, ask questions.
Yeah, it's a really great way to put it. I mean, question asking is really at the core of the show for me. I think that comedy is at its best when it's asking questions, and I think it's at its worst when it's answering them. And I really think that that's what we look to do here. We look to really through just the format, but also the nature of faith is seeking, and that's always just been so interesting to me. And it excites me that we've been able to translate that because it was the mission statement of the show. I mean, you're talking about, I remember walking around with Gerard and I just said to him really simply, I was like, man, I want to talk about God the way that I feel God in my life. That rattling question, the connection, the guilt, the everydayness, but also the reality that I am in the present moment that I'm in. And I want to see it on screen in a way that isn't this like cartoonish angels in heaven, that isn't this bipolar priest who does cocaine. And like I really want it to just feel like me, like a lot of people that I know, like the people I grew up with, like the people I grew up with who, you know, we were like, we're not gonna have sex till we get married, and then we'd have sex, and then we'd be like, well, we're never gonna do it again. And then you watch us just kind of try and like justify, well, no, but we're in love, and this and that. And then, you know, and just watching someone deal with that, and kind of trying to wrestle with the moral and with the carnal. And so those are all the questions that are kind of at the core. And that wrestling match is kind of more indicative of what this show is about than anything. It's more about that match than it is about Muslims.
I think so too, because like I was saying, I think, and I was wondering if this came to you conceptually with the character, that he ends up being a test for so many people. I mean, he's tested too, but it really brings to mind to me your stand-up, which is that basically you're sort of testing the audience, see how far you can push them, but we realize you're asking the same questions too. So it's not like you're being superior to anybody. There's no smugness in the act.
Yeah.
And I think, I wonder too, that idea of constant testing and the kind of vibration that creates is something that was conceptual to the show.
It's a really great framing, and I actually, the quick answer is kind of no, just because like your framing on it, I haven't you're putting it in a way that's like actually very exciting to me, because I haven't quite heard it like that. But it really, that really is at the essence of what excites me in general. It's, I don't like getting on stage and saying, again, here's the answer. I really like getting on stage and saying, come on, like, I know you have this question too. Like, that's really what's exciting to me, is like, don't tell me you don't have this question too. That's it. Can we just meet at the question, and then come with me, or we'll go our separate ways? But like that's kind of the, that's the intersection that's so exciting to me. And it's certainly kind of at the core of the show.
Because I feel like part of the show, at least for me, is whenever you see a show with a comic's name in the title, at some point he's smarter than everybody else around him. I mean, he may not be as effective, but he's smarter than everybody else. And Ramy is not, nor does he seek to be smarter than anybody else. And I guess I just wondered too, as you were cooking this whole thing together, you thought, these are things I don't want you to start putting things up on the board, at least not physically in your head. You can't be smarter than everybody else. And because if that's the case, then it's not a show about faith, it's a show about telling us who knows the best.
Yeah, it really comes down to me. It's to me, it's about a crossroads in comedy in general. Like, I think comedy is kind of faced with this crisis right now, because I think that a lot of the way comedy is discussed is, here are modern day philosophers, here are truth tellers, here are the people bringing truth to power. And most of us are not very well read and didn't finish college and are kind of degenerate. And so there's this weird thing where it's, I talk about this all the time, but it's like, I grew up with Jon Stewart, who did do those things, you know, and I grew up as a Muslim kid in Jersey, and my biggest defender in the 24-hour news cycle was this amazing Jewish comic. And he did do those things, because that was his brand. That was his brand of what he did. But I don't think that like the Jon Stewart effect can kind of be conflated to what comedy's supposed to be doing. Again, like we're at a crossroad where, because so much of what we get from like actual leaders and actual, you know, sources of information is so faulty. Yeah, people look to comedy for it. And so I think in crafting a namesake character, there is an instinct that I think many would have of kind of being like, oh, cool, he's going to tell truth to power, or, oh man, he's going to like sarcastically zing us into what he wants to point us into saying is true. And I don't think that that's anything we ever wanted to do. We wanted this character to be the flaw. I didn't want to make a show where I want people to follow me. You know, I want people to meet their own experience in as intimate and as questioning of a place. That's it. Because again, that's all I really feel like I'm qualified to do. But I think you could actually boil it down to like, what do you think comedy's supposed to do? And then I think the work is going to kind of either go in the direction that you said a lot of namesake stuff does, or go in a direction that we've been really excited to go in.
As you're saying these things, so many things are popping into my head. One of which is that you also create a show that, despite dealing with all these philosophical stances and questions, is at the root of it funny. I mean, and a lot, you know what I'm saying? A lot of modern comedy is about offering up philosophy to like-minded people, and if you laugh, it's because you agree.
Yeah.
And it feels to me all these things we're talking about are clearly important, but you knew the show had to be funny too.
Yeah, man, it's just gotta be funny too. I mean, like, and it's gotta be in a way that, you know, again, it's because we're asking questions, I think, and we don't have to be right. It's just, yeah, it's just funny. It's that's gotta be the number one thing. And to me, the most funny thing is watching people be messy. And when people are messy, they're not trying to get a platitude across, and they're not trying to preach. They're striving, but in that quest they're failing, and so that to me, that's just what I personally find funniest. And so we make sure that that's at the core of everything, is the right kind of failure.
It's funny because I just find myself thinking as a person of color and watching the show, so much of what we do in this country, in the society, is reacting to power rather than
Mm.
preaching the power. And it feels like in a lot of ways, that's who you are, as both as a stand-up and as a creator. But that's very different from being an actor. You got to try to feel the truth of the moment. And I guess I wonder for you, because you're doing a lot of things. You're writing the show, basically this entire last season you wrote, you're directing. How tough is it for you to clear your head and find that physical place for the guy who sort of leans forward as he's looking for questions or answers to questions? All these things that are so different physically from you. How hard is that to do, to get yourself into that space in front of the camera?
You know, I view this like as such, it's such a rare opportunity to get to do what I'm doing, because there are so many people who are so talented and who have things to say that never get the opportunity to do what I'm doing. And so I'm never going to kind of feel like I'm here only on merit. Like, I feel like I am on merit, but I'm also like, man, this is a window, and like I gotta run towards it, and I have to do things that I really care about. And so it I just really think when every premise is something that means something to me, and when every premise has a massive risk to succeed or fail. Most of the things on our show are pass or fail. Like, they're not really down the middle. It's like, this is either going to work or this is going to fall on its face. Like, that's most of what we try to attempt. And so when that is like, it's like any good tightrope walk, you have to pay attention. You have to give it your all. Otherwise, you will fall off the rope. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way, it can't demand all of your attention. And so that's really the barometer for every premise, for every episode, for every scene, is like, do I feel like I need to focus on this tightrope? Because anytime I feel like I have a whole sidewalk to walk on, that's when it would suck. I'd be like, oh yeah, this scene's easy. It's like, it can't feel like that. It's got to feel like, oh man, like I have to really be in the pocket to get this right. That's what's exciting to me.
Because as a stand-up, one of the things that really I think distinguishes you is you clearly have a low threshold for boredom. And doing all these things, I almost wonder if, because it gives you a chance to use so many different parts of your concentration, it helps you sort of focus in that way where you're not bored by it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bust you on that, but it's obvious.
No, it is a really good, that's a really good breakdown. This is pseudo therapeutic for me, Elvis, because you're definitely framing a couple of things where I'm like, yeah, that is kind of what's at the core of this. Because it's interesting. So much as we've made 20 episodes in a really small, short amount of time, so it's cool to think about it holistically like this. Because yeah, I agree with that.
No, because I guess I just find myself, like, in prepping for this, two things that people tend to not ask you about is that you clearly trained as an actor. So I can see you making actors' choices, not only in the frame, but when you direct, when other people aren't in the shot, when you're not in the shot with other people. And that you have I feel like as a creator, you're responding first and foremost as that. And people try to sort of, I guess it's this whole reductive thinking we live in. But I think this show is really exciting because that thing you're talking about, that pass or fail, there's like one of those things in probably every show. Like, how can we be anti-Semitic? We're Semitic. Or, or the whole thing about going from porn star to breast milk. And like, what is that who I think? Wait, who? What? I mean, that thing that I can feel the cards like flipping over your head. Okay, we've got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Because if it's not a show that I would watch, then I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, dude, it's filling, it's 100% the barometer. If I wouldn't watch this, why would I do it? If I don't have to explain why I did this to my parents, what's the point? Like if it could happen effectively online or on TikTok or in a tweet, why go for that joke? Like I need to, even if I could do it effectively on stage, why would I do it? Like it's this is a unique format that again is utilizing an ensemble. It's utilizing the art of TV. Like, why would I go for anything that could happen in any other format? And so that is so much of what a lot of our material goes through is like, could this be tweeted? Could this just be like whatever? Like, and again, it's not that you can't have a tweetable line of dialogue, but like the premises that we're really trying to zone in on, we want to make sure, yeah, they're exciting and they need a TV show to do.
But there's
Because I don't
a
want to waste anyone's time, man. You know what I mean? There's 500 shows on TV. I'm like, if you're gonna click and watch my thing, like, I don't want to disrespect you. Why would I waste your time?
But what you're talking about is the idea of the concept of being able to explain something simply, but not making it simple-minded. But there's enough weight that it's not tweetable, and you can't like reduce it to 30 seconds on TikTok. It's got, it's got, and the thing is that this show really is storytelling. I mean, just to go, if you looked at the first episodes of each season and the last episodes of each season, they all tie together, and you could make a movie basically out of those 4 episodes.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's something that that's been an exciting result of like really organically chasing the premises that excite us, because I think so much of it is like I want to dig into things that again make me nervous. And so when that's kind of at the core of the investigation, because a lot of times making this thing just feels like an investigation. It's like, what do we really want to do? What are we really going to land on? What are we going to whatever? And we're not, we are not like, I'm not I'm not like some narrative genius, like here's the novel before we even roll the camera. So much of it is like we're finding it. And it's like I want my sensors to be kind of like so sensitive to what's going on in the moment that like I get the thing that I'm most attuned to in the moment. And so when that ends up happening is there is this synchronicity that ends up happening between the first and last episode. There is this synchronicity in kind of watching, oh, okay, cool. Like tone is evolving to the reality where it's like, oh, cool, this is starting to feel almost like stages of a character's life. And those aren't things that like I could have told you, like, I'm not gonna lie and be like, yep, when I went into Ramy, this was the plan. It's not that, but it's like I did go into it saying, I want this to scare me and I want this to like really again do things that only this thing could do. And so a lot of what you're talking about is a result of more of like not giving up on those desires going in as opposed to like a master plan.
I guess I wonder too, if part of this reason to do this show as compared to doing stand-up or writing for somebody else, whatever, is that it really gives you a chance to flex your acting muscles and use those skills that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun, man. I mean, I trained as an actor before I did stand up. And it's always kind of, I mean, you're in LA, it's kind of the most annoying stand up is the one who was an actor, but I definitely kind of, I stepped into acting to just want to act. And then when I did stand up, I did it to just want to do stand up. It wasn't like any one thing was to try to serve the other. It's just like, I'm very, I do respect format in that way where I'm like, cool, if I'm going to do something, like I'll kind of want to do it to my fullest. Like I remember, and sometimes if I feel like I can't do it well, I'm just like not even going to do it at all. Like I remember like picking up guitar when I was a kid and I was like, I don't think my fingers don't feel like they could do bar chords effectively. So I'm just going to drop this. I want to just do something like, and like actually be able to do it. And I started video editing. Like that was that was kind of my, approach always was like, I really want to like, I don't need to do everything. I just need to do the things that I feel like I could actually engross myself in and like, again, make a contribution. Like, I don't want to just be like doing it to say I'm doing it, because that's just, again, super disrespectful.
But in the way you're talking about, did acting feel like a fit for you as soon as you started it, or was it kind of a bit of an uphill climb for you?
It did. Acting felt like a fit. It was funny. I did have to separate for myself so that like acting and auditioning were two different things, because I did think like, oh man, do I really like? Because I just hated the auditioning process, and then it took me a while to kind of be like, oh, that's just because like most of this, like I care about how things are written, and most of the things you audition for you get, and you're like, I don't understand why people believe in this, and then you have to go in and pretend you believe. It's like a whole, that's like, they're like two different things. I think once I separated that those were two different things, I was like, oh yeah, no, I really do love acting. Like I do love getting to kind of surrender to something, and again, like strip real life performance and just focus on what the work is calling for. And if the work is calling for actually like an honest um, attempt, that's really exciting to me. Like an actual honest attempt at getting at something. It's really fun.
Just let people know in about 10 minutes we're going to be starting to take questions here. But on this, I just wondered, because in sort of emotional narrative terms, this is as complex as, not in storytelling terms, but in emotional terms, this is a complicated piece to say Mr. Robot. And I just wonder, some way or another, the fact that they were divining all those things and putting all those things, setting all those plates in motion that would eventually like cause, something else to fall over, if that was kind of an inspiration for you, the way that show works.
Interesting. Kind of. I mean, like I think like what I love about Sam, and I got to do like a couple of I got to do a couple episodes of that, which was really cool. And what he's so good at is again something that I really respect, which is he's kind of like, I'm going to create a tone and I'm going to really stick to it. And so that's something that I just really respect, where I'm like, he's kind of really clear as to like what he's presenting and how he's doing it, and it's unified in that sense. Like you can kind of tell it goes through the same filter and it kind of comes out that way. And I felt like those are the things we try to do too. Obviously we have a different tone and we have a different filter, but the principle behind it, I really like, yeah, appreciate it. And I think that's why that's one of those shows, yeah, first season immediately you're just like, this, this is stunning. Like it was, someone cared, and then they actually knew how to do, like they knew how to reach the bar that they set for themselves.
But also in a way too, it's also both these things, and this may be a little bit of a stretch, but the reason I linked them is they're both about vulnerability, or being vulnerable in the world, being maybe too vulnerable in the world. And I just, go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, like in a way, like they open themselves up in a very personal way to kind of global things, and I think that that's like a really it's a tough line to ride without getting preachy and didactic and kind of lost in the soup.
I just wonder if there were like movies or that kind of thing that you showed to the cast or you looked at before you started each season to give you an idea of what's, because in visual terms it looks very different from most of what we see in comedy. Because one of the things that happens is at no point is there a shot that tells us where to look.
Yeah, I mean, we really have been blessed with like really great DPs and kind of, I think a lot of the conversations that started with my co-creators Ryan Welch and Ari Kacher is that like we had started off kind of being like, well, we want to dig into a tone that feels more like a short film. Like we want to do our best to not do the TV thing and have like A story, B story, C story. We had all done a lot of multicam. Ari had done it on Carmichael. I had acted on a multicam show for a couple of seasons. So we got that. We got what was funny about that. But again, we had thought about this show at some point actually as a multicam, because we had all had, because we'd all had the experience in it, and then when we really started kind of parsing out my stand-up and I started kind of putting together documents of what I want to talk about and this and that, we were like, this isn't going to work out as a multicam. Like we need to really like go the other way. And so then once you go the other way, again, we're like, well, how do we really utilize this format for what it is and really go into it? And something really quickly, we were like, we'd rather do dedicated episodes than A stories and B stories. And if we have a tonal comp, it's not really another show as much as it is like The Graduate, like that is how do you tell a fish out of water that isn't your typical fish out of water, that uses the camera, that also uses ambition, that also uses, you know, all those feelings in a way where, yeah, that would be the thing I would talk about when we were talking about the show. You know, and then of course, like agents and stuff are like, well, maybe I don't think if you can, I don't think you could sell a TV show talking about The Graduate. But we're, you know, but we kind of, and we kind of didn't. We kind of like hid, I think, some of how we wanted to approach it. But yeah, I think like those early convos with Ari and Ryan, we really zoned in on just that desire to, again, I don't even think it's revolutionary, but it's just kind of like to really from the base ground level kind of be like, we want these episodes to be focused, and we want these premises to live on multiple levels without kind of just throwing something out there and then jump into another character, you know?
Yeah, because each one of these shows, each episode kind of lives as a fully formed anecdote, really.
Mm-hmm.
And when you break with form, like the last episode of this season, starting with a flashback, was really jarring because it was a real, you know, 180 from what had been done before, and certainly reorients us. Because, like I said, it's why to me the first and last episode of each season, that you combine them, you could make a piece out of them, which is
Really
really kind of
interesting.
amazing to think of a sitcom in those terms.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think something we've been excited about being able to do, and I think we've been able to do it so far in the first 20, is like, yeah, when you click on the next episode, you're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen. And I think that's something, again, for the bored watcher and creator, I like that. Like, I don't, you know, cool, you don't know, like, what's it going to be? And it still feels like us, but it's like, oh, what version of us? It's like knowing a person. You're like, oh, cool, like or an interesting person, I would say. You kind of know what they're capable of, but you're not quite sure how are they going to show up to dinner? Like, are they going to dye their hair? Like, what's going on? Like it, but it's still them, you know? And so that's something that, that we have a lot of fun doing.
Because I have to say, to that end, the cold open even like leaves me kind of in a state of agitation. It's like, when's this going to end? How's it going to end? What's going to happen with this? And I just wonder if you craft those consciously in that way too, to keep people kind of feeling at loose ends as they're watching the show.
The cold opens of the episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we, in a way, like I think between our cold opens and between kind of crafting our closing credits with music, um, that almost might be the thing that I borrow most from stand up, which is like I think you can open up with a really cool question and then you can kind of like dig into it and then you can have a punchline. And that's probably format wise the thing that is like, you know, we have this song that's our intro that is Henny Shnuda from this band called Mosrien, which means the Egyptians. It's a classic Egyptian song. It used to be the soccer anthem through the 70s, and it's really, it's such it kind of punctuates things in the way that an audience laughter could, or something, you know, like to really kind of get into those nuances is really fun. But yeah, that kind of structure, that kind of format is the thing that I feel like I've, and unconsciously, taken most from stand up. As I kind of look back on the episodes, I was like, oh, this is what we've been having fun doing.
Then, since you sort of alluded to it, what was the pitch to Hulu? If you weren't saying, well, we're doing The Graduate, but you know, in the 21st century.
It was, it was, I think I opened up with like a line where I was like, you know, I said, I'm a Muslim American and I feel most, like the hyphen between the two words, you know, like just that piece, that little dash, that, and I'm kind of bouncing this way and I'm bouncing that way, and I want to make a show that is that dash, and it's not looking at the culture critically as an outsider, and it's not looking at America critically from an immigrant perspective. It's like really synthesis. What does synthesis for a person of color, for a immigrant family look like? As opposed to, I think a lot of storytelling has been like erasure, or like how do I upgrade to our version of white, you know? Like it would always be like, you know, I want to go to the prom, and like someone's crying or whatever. It's like, nah, this character actually isn't even sure if the prom is in his interest. It's probably like a, you know, a corporate potentially satanic event, but he's kind of trying to figure out like, is that real? What is that? And so again, kind of stripping away anything didactic, and really looking at synthesis. That was really at the core of the pitch.
Well, let's see what we got here for the Q&A part of the event. Uh, okay. I'm going to throw this out to you, but you do with it as you will. Um, if I have a Ramy spec script that focuses on the Amani character written by a born and raised Egyptian woman that I would think would be perfect for the show, where would be best to send it to?
Oh my gosh, who would be best to send it to?
Gerard. She can get it.
Imagine,
She can get
imagine,
it. She gets the job.
send it to GerardCarmichael@gmail.com. That would be amazing. um, I would send it there first, and then I would also look at I have a little email on my Twitter, but you know what it is? It's more like if you can introduce yourself on Twitter. We try not to read stuff just because we're working on stuff, and so that can get a little tricky. But shoot us a note, and we'll, hopefully we can have a conversation. It'll be cool.
What led to the unusual commitment to exploring all the core family stories and not just Ramy's?
Um, I mean, I might use your framing, man. Boredom. I'm not trying to like sit just with Ramy the whole time. I'm like, cool, dope dude. He's asking questions, but I'm so fascinated by these other performers, and I get, just from a creator standpoint, motivated to write for them and give them stuff to play. And I also just think it really helps our story, and I think in general, television can use that kind of variety. I think that a lot of times we're just kind of following the same person do the same thing, and some shows are built on comfortable familiarity and kind of knowing what the pattern of each episode will be, and I watch them and I love it. I mean, like, I love nothing more than completely understanding the entire premise of the Curb episode I'm about to watch and then getting like left fielded by some joke. It's like, actually, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I put that on, and I'm like, oh, I love that I know what's about to piss him off. I love that I can, and I love seeing like how he's going to surprise me because he's really good at that. But like, our show is built on kind of the opposite, like muscle in many ways.
A question from somebody who says it's Lindsay Lohan, so I'll let you do that as what you will. And what did the Sheikh's daughter see in Ramy?
I think what was really interesting about that relationship is seeing kind of the optimism on both sides. There's kind of this like thing that we really wanted to craft where, again, it's kind of watching somebody fall for the earnest attempt of someone else for the presentation, and I think that there's so much presentation in religion, and there's so much kind of posturing, that I think the Sheikh's daughter saw Ramy and was like, oh wow, he's actually not posturing and he's still trying, and I think she kind of felt like there were the bones there for an honest relationship. Because in a lot of our communities, being the Sheikh's daughter, it's almost like being famous, and you're like, does someone like me because of me or because of my fame? And there is this there's this thing to navigate, and so I think for her, yeah, and also I think when it comes to romance, sometimes people make slightly questionable choices.
Well, whatever do you mean? Let's go to another question from RK, which is a good one. Talk about Stevie.
So Steve, I talked about learning how to video edit back in the day in high school. Steve and I, we've known each other since the third grade in real life. We've grown up 5 minutes from each other in Jersey. We learned how to make things together. We were in the same television production classes and made stuff for a couple years together. And it was really exciting to get the opportunity to get the show, push the pilot through, and kind of be like, oh, cool, I can have him, be on as a character. And we were always joking of like, every sitcom has like the ethnic best friend, and we were like, cool, we're gonna have the white friend, but it's gonna be Steve. It's gonna be this dude who I think even on a more intentional level is Ramy is kind of built on this optimism around faith and around God, and Steve is kind of a bit antithetical to it, and kind of being like, if there is, why am I the way that I am? And really kind of seeing that relationship progress, not only in that kind of disparity between spiritual beliefs, but also like they're kind of outsiders in their own ways, and they kind of see each other at their most vulnerable and kind of know each other more than anyone else knows the other. And so it's a really been a really exciting thing to craft with him, and it's been a really exciting thing to kind of have, again, kind of at the core of the questions of the show.
Sure. From Noran Mohammed, how did you go about writing the mom and sister episodes? What were your priorities going into that, and who are the writers that you collaborated with?
The mom and sister episode, well, in each season there were kind of like different different points of view and different things that we were really interested to get into. I think a lot of season one is looking at loneliness, and it's also looking at sex for the Ramy character. And then it was really interesting to kind of be like, cool, what does loneliness look like for his mom? And what does sex look like for his sister? You know, we're seeing him kind of navigate it on one end, and how does she? And then in season two, we feel like we're really kind of transformational. We're kind of like watching characters try to make changes for themselves. And so we're like, oh, cool. So what does it look like for Ramy's mom to try and find a change for herself? You know, she's trying to find something new. What does it look like for his sister and the hurdles that get in the way of the change she's looking for? And so it's been really exciting to kind of craft those things. And as a room, we're, you know, one of our writers, Maytha Hassan, who worked on those episodes in season two, she was actually a creative advisor for us in season one. And it was really exciting to be able to kind of get someone who's a creative advisor. And she's a PhD of, actually, I don't even know what her PhD is in. I think it's in religious studies and probably a couple other things. She's super smart if you look her up. But she's always been someone who's been in my ear about certain types of stories, but she's also like really kind of not only historically, but like emotionally adept at certain things, and, you know, as an Arab woman. And so it was cool to, that's the kind of thing that you get to do when a show goes well, where like I had her on as a creative advisor season one, and then the show goes well, and I'm like, cool, this person, I know they haven't written before, but they should be in the room. And then it's like a really exciting development for us. And I think we get to have conversations that we wouldn't have had. So looking at those episodes and those stories is really fun for us.
So somebody says here, from Maximilian Castro, I see that season 3 is good to go. Ramy, because he knows you, what are you most stoked about? And what do you anticipate being the biggest hurdle in regards to writing and shooting season 3?
I'm so excited that we get to do this again. It's so great. Like, this is not any sort of fake humble shit. It's like, how could you do a third season? No one thinks about that when you're trying to get a pilot. You know, you don't think you can do 3. A lot of shows don't. So one, super grateful and excited, because I think when we finished season 2, I was really feeling like, oh, we're just getting started. Like, there are so many things we can get into with these characters. And I feel like we really, in terms of show DNA, we really started figuring out like even further how we're going to kind of go in on things. So I'm excited to just further our tone and further our storytelling, and really get into a lot of stories. And then hurdles and stuff. I mean, I think it's just the hurdles everyone's having right now. I don't know how the show is going to be made yet. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what this, it's almost this question of like, if this ends soon, kind of pandemic wise, what we're going through, which it looks like it's not going to be soon, but maybe it's not going to be forever. I think there's just kind of this like debate that I do think all creators are going to be looking at in television, which is, what world am I really trying to reflect? You know, am I trying to reflect the realities of the one that we've been in and might be in for 24 months or whatever it might be? Or am I just going to skip that era because it's going to be kind of like hit to death? And so I think that's the kind of balance that I don't know yet what we're going to do. And I think it's going to be evolving. And then there's just the logistical stuff of like how to make something with people and be safe. And so, yeah, I don't know, maybe season 3 will be animated.
Or just go the other way if you really want to make yourself be awake. Do it multicam.
Right.
Bellas has a question. Were there any films or TV series that inspired you in your exploration of the theme of faith?
You know, this came out of a void of having seen things that spoke to me on a spiritual level and about faith. And so I'm sure there is, I don't think we have a monopoly on a nuanced look at faith in the way that we do, but I certainly hadn't seen it in TV and film personally. So a lot of this came out of kind of watching things where I was like, okay, like cool, seventh heaven, but like no, you know, like kind of watch, like it's like that's a show about a family kind of dealing with faith, but like God, you know, that's not. And I love that show growing up, but I say that to say, like, tonally with what we were trying to do, it came more out of a void, and it came more from kind of being inspired by a lot of music too. I mean, like I would listen to Brother Ali, the poet Amir Suleiman, who's been on our show now. He's in the second season. It was kind of seeing people tackle faith in some other art forms as well, and kind of feeling like, okay, cool, like we could do this on TV too.
Anita wants to ask, your mother conveys so much about so many often unspoken and spoken societal issues. How reminiscent of your real mom is she?
You know, she's again almost in the same way that Ramy could be reminiscent of me, very stripped back. I think it's looking at my mom at her most, you know, confused on Facebook and kind of stretching that out, and really kind of like playing in that world. She's kind of a combo of my mom, of some aunts, of some people that I know in my community. But yeah, my mom in real life would probably be a little boring if I really tried to script it right to her. But there's definitely a lot of the over momming that is real, and that, you know, just really doting on me, and kind of less so with my sister. That dynamic, my sister will probably speak to being real, and then the some of the other stuff, not as much.
Let's see that before we know your mom's just tuned out. So anyway, uh, what would your character like to have heard from your grandfather before he died in Egypt?
Great question. You know, it's a really great question, because I've been so busy this last like 3 years, and I lost my grandmother in February, and actually something that I did was, I asked the editors to edit together a bunch of episodes of the show, but pull out any sex or cursing or anything that would make her uncomfortable. So it was just like a bunch of people like eating and praying. But I played it for her at the hospital. But it was funny because I was watching, she watched that episode, each episode, and it was really kind of surreal thing, kind of watching her watch it, and kind of what it was about, and kind of what I felt like was probably going to end up happening with her. And I think in real life with my grandma, I'm like, man, I wish I just knew more about her when I wish I knew more about her before she was my grandma, you know? And I think that's almost like kind of what my character was looking for from his grandpa, which is like, oh, I want to know who you were when you were like me, and what did you do? You know, what did you do before you were grandpa? What did my dad do before he was dad? I think that's sometimes what we're trying to kind of like really strip away from our relatives, and it's so hard because, again, everyone's like so in their role, and there's like, it's like they've signed like some sort of family NDA, and they're not going to tell you like what happened before you were born, and you just want to know. You just want to be like, dude, just tell me about you as like, just as a human, just as like not that you're not, but like you're such a, you know, like you like just what, yeah, what was it like before me? Because that could help me more than anything.
Well, this actually question kind of follows. You know, if you're not watching the edited version of the show, which I guess would be my big fat Egyptian wedding, um, how's the response been? This is from Tarek. How's the response been from your friends and family in Egypt, from the Egyptian American community, especially in response to some of the more outrageous scenes? What outrageous scenes would there be in?
I don't know what you're talking about. It's wild. I think so much of this show has always been, in the making of it, just me being like, you know, finish writing a script, finish editing an episode, and then go to sleep and just be like, well, I'm never going to be allowed at the mosque again, and a bunch of people aren't going to talk to me, and everyone's going to hate me, and I don't know how to explain to them that I'm doing this so that we can have more open conversations. And I love the community, and I love my family, and I love Egypt. But it's always knowing kind of like, this could really go the other way. I've been really surprised. I've been really, there's obviously blowback. There's obviously people who think, from a religious standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, that it is the worst thing that could have happened to our culture and our youth. And like, there's a lot of those, takes, which I kind of was feeling like, okay, we're gonna get them. But also, I mean, I think, when the second season premiered, it was the top, like Ramy was the top trending thing in Cairo Twitter for like a week. And a bunch of people are watching the show. And I'm hearing from Shadi Alphonse and Rosaline El Bey, who are Egyptian actors on the show, from Cairo. They're like, everyone is watching and everyone is so pumped about the season. And there's just this level of engagement. And it's funny, I'm even like, we got these Emmy noms, and my aunt calls me from Cairo and she's like, the whole country's praying for you to win the Emmy. And I'm like, wow, it's not what I thought would happen. I thought, and again, it's not that we don't have our detractors and we don't have people who disagree, but I think part of like what we were talking about earlier, Elvis, about like what I try to do with stand up is I don't want to be declarative. I just want to be asking. And I do think whether people have issue with the show or not, I do think whether consciously or subconsciously, I do think they understand that this isn't declarative, that this is an exploration of the subconscious. This is an exploration of the questions we're all asking. And so when I feel people having issue with it, I feel like they end up kind of losing steam, because they might be upset, but they also I think they kind of know, like, yeah, but people are talking about this stuff, like, yeah, this isn't like, this isn't, it's not as offensive as I'm saying it is.
Gosh, I guess we have time for one last question. So this is a good one because it's short, but it's also a good question from Josie Gosson. Could you see this series eventually involving any other comics from the Arab American comedy world?
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously we have a bunch. We have Mo, Amr, who plays Mo, and Dave Merhej, who we're really excited to get. Obviously, Shadi Alphonse, who I mentioned. Um, and I think as we kind of get into more seasons, I think it's just going to kind of be like a natural fit to see more people from our community as the storylines really kind of stretch out. And we've always been, we pull from the Arab American Comedy Festival, the cast. We pull so many people. May Kalamawi, who plays my sister on the show, she's from the Arab American Comedy Festival, and so that's like a big scene in New York. And so the show is kind of built on a lot of people from that scene, and yeah, excited to kind of keep having more people too.
This will be the last question from Niobe, and this will be an easy one to answer.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, by the way. How is it to work with Mahershala?
Oh man, it's like, it's everything you think it would be. It's like, he is such a gift to everybody. I mean, it's this person who, like, I always say he really like leads by listening. He's so attentive, and he asks questions, and he cares. And I remember him being like, "Oh man, I'm nervous to play this part," kind of before we were on set. And I'm like, "Okay, like, this dude's kind of doing the humble thing." And then he shows up, and I'm like, I think this dude's actually nervous to play this part. Like, he actually is like, he's like putting all his attention on it. And it's like, there's this thing in acting of first time every time. Every time you do a take, it should feel like the first time this character is doing it. Every time you go, and he's like actually the embodiment of that. That's why he's so good. It's actually first time every time. It's like watching this person who has every right to kind of just like wing it, every right to kind of just step into his knowledge, but he doesn't approach a role from his pedigree or from his knowledge. He actually approaches it as like this genuinely curious person. It's like he has this ability to like wipe the slate of who he is and really turn into who he's supposed to be for the role. And watching him do that, what I think is the best actors to me are just really impressive, amazing shifters. They can just shift. They can kind of go from the craft table, eating, talking to someone, getting a hot soup, and then roll right in front of camera and shift. And it's like a master class of watching somebody do that. So I learned a lot from being around him.
Well, because I know your arm must be getting tired, we're gonna let you go. I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. I'm a huge, as you can tell, a big fan of yours and follow you
Oh
for
man,
being a part of this.
I thank you for the you gave me some language I'm gonna steal when I when I talk about when I try to explain things to my dad about what we're doing. But no, I really appreciate it.
No, you gotta come to my show sometime too.
I'm there. Let me know.
All right,
Seriously, I was.
all right.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right. Take care.
You too.